You live in the most comfortable society in human history. More choices, more freedom, more entertainment, more opportunity. So here's the uncomfortable question. Why do so many people still feel empty? At first glance, it sounds offensive. It sounds ungrateful. It sounds like something we're not supposed to say out loud. But this isn't an attack on modern life. It's an observation about human nature. Because the problem isn't America. The problem is expecting comfort to do the job of meaning. This society is incredibly good at making life easier. But easier does not mean fulfilling. You can order anything instantly. Stream endless content. Work toward success. Build a life that looks impressive. And still lie awake at night feeling unsettled. Not sad. Not depressed. Just unsatisfied. And that's where most people get confused. They assume something is wrong with them. They assume they haven't found the right career, the right relationship, the right version of themselves yet. So they keep upgrading their life. More productivity, more self-improvement, more distraction. But the feeling stays. Here's the part no one wants to hear. Human beings were never designed to be satisfied by consumption. Not food, not pleasure, not success, not even love from other humans. Those things can bring enjoyment, but not rest. Islam explains this clearly. The heart was created with a specific orientation. It seeks permanence. And everything in this world is temporary. That mismatch creates restlessness. Not because the world is bad, but because it's incomplete. Modern psychology calls this hedonic adaptation. You get what you want, your brain adjusts, and the satisfaction fades. Islam describes it as the nature of the nafs, the self that always wants more. Different language. Same truth. This is why dopamine never lasts. This is why achievements feel empty faster than expected. This is why people who have it all still feel disconnected. It's not weakness. It's biology and spirituality overlapping. And here's where it gets controversial. A society built on constant stimulation will struggle with stillness. Silence feels uncomfortable. Boredom feels threatening. Being alone with your thoughts feels heavy, so people avoid it. They scroll, they binge, they stay busy. But avoidance doesn't heal dissatisfaction. It amplifies it, because silence is where meaning speaks. And most of us haven't been taught how to listen. Islam doesn't tell people to reject ambition. It tells them not to worship it. There's a difference. Success is a tool, not an identity. Pleasure is a gift, not a purpose. Freedom is powerful, but without direction, it becomes exhausting. And this is where many people misunderstand religion. They think faith exists to limit life. In reality, it exists to anchor it. Islam doesn't deny desire. It organizes it. It doesn't suppress the self. It disciplines it. Because an undisciplined desire never leads to peace, only escalation. More money, more attention, more validation, and yet the same emptiness. Here's the part that flips the narrative. That dissatisfaction you feel is not a failure. It's a signal. If temporary things satisfied you completely, you would never look beyond them. You would never ask deeper questions. You would never search for purpose. So sometimes nothing satisfies you because you weren't created to stop here. That doesn't mean your life is wrong. It means your soul is asking for something more permanent. Islam calls this fitra, the natural inclination toward God. Not culture, not upbringing, not geography, human nature. That's why people across all backgrounds feel the same restlessness. Different lifestyles, same ache. And here's where it becomes clear. This message isn't anti-modern life. It's pro-human. It's saying enjoy comfort, but don't expect it to replace meaning. Build success, but don't make it your worth. Love people, but don't demand from them what only the Creator can give. Allah is not presented as an escape from life. He's presented as its foundation. When that foundation is missing, everything feels unstable, even when it looks perfect. This is why remembrance brings calm. Not because problems disappear, but because the heart remembers where it belongs. You stop chasing satisfaction and start living with contentment. And contentment is not settling. It's clarity. So if nothing satisfies you lately, don't rush to fix yourself. You're not broken. You're human. And maybe, just maybe, your restlessness is an invitation, not a flaw. And here's where things get even more uncomfortable. Because when people feel unsatisfied, they're often told the solution is self-love. Love yourself more. Accept yourself more. Validate yourself more. But what happens when you've done all of that, and the emptiness still remains? Self-focus has limits. You can't become your own source of meaning. Psychology is beginning to admit this quietly. When the self becomes the center of the universe, pressure increases, not peace. Every failure feels personal. Every comparison feels threatening. Every setback feels like proof that you're not enough. Islam never asks you to hate yourself. It asks you to stop making yourself the ultimate reference point. Because humans were never meant to carry that weight. When everything revolves around me, the mind becomes fragile. But when life revolves around something higher, the self can finally rest. This is why worship exists, not as control, but as relief. 5 daily prayers are not interruptions. They're recalibrations. They pull the mind out of constant self-evaluation and place it somewhere stable. Not in productivity, not in appearance, not in public approval, but in remembrance. And that's another reason nothing satisfies you anymore. You are overstimulated but under-grounded. You are informed but not anchored. You are connected to everything except stillness. Modern life trains the brain to chase peaks. Islam trains the soul to value depth. Peaks fade, depth sustains. This doesn't mean happiness is wrong. It means happiness was never supposed to be permanent. Contentment was, and there's a huge difference. Happiness depends on circumstances. Contentment survives them. That's why people with less sometimes feel more at peace, not because they lack ambition, but because their identity isn't being negotiated daily. Islam doesn't promise constant pleasure. It promises orientation. You know where you stand. You know why you're here. You know where you're returning. That clarity removes the background anxiety most people live with but can't name. And once that anxiety softens, something changes. You stop demanding perfection from life. You stop expecting fulfillment from people. You stop chasing validation like oxygen. You still work. You still dream. You still grow. But you're no longer desperate. And desperation is the silent killer of joy. This is why chasing satisfaction directly never works, because satisfaction is a byproduct, not a goal. Islam places the goal correctly. Not pleasure, not ego, not constant happiness, but alignment. Alignment between the heart and its purpose. When that alignment exists, even hardship feels meaningful. And when it doesn't, even luxury feels hollow. So if you feel like you're doing everything right, but still feel unfulfilled, it's not because you failed modern life. It's because modern life can't answer a spiritual question. And it was never meant to. That's not an insult. That's honesty. Faith doesn't compete with progress. It completes it. And when the heart finally stops looking for eternity in temporary things, that's when satisfaction quietly begins.